Hey everyone, and welcome to this explainer. If you're involved in planning branded walls for a commercial space, you already know it's a pretty massive investment. Obviously, you want it to look absolutely incredible, but you also need it to actually last, right? Well, today we're putting on our expert hats to help you solve a really common dilemma businesses face when they tackle these projects. We're going to break down the actual, real-world mechanics behind two of the most popular options out there so you can walk away totally empowered to make a smart, long-term investment for your space. Let's get into it. So it usually boils down to this one core question. Should you go with a vinyl wall wrap or a printed mural? Now, I know it sounds like a simple, purely aesthetic choice, but trust me, it is so much more than that. Making the wrong choice here doesn't just give you a headache down the road, it drastically impacts the durability, your ongoing maintenance costs, and frankly, exactly how that branding is going to look a year or two from now. As experts in this space, we don't just guess, we rely on objective data to make these long-term decisions, and that is exactly what we're going to walk you through today. Okay, here's our game plan for today. First, we'll look at the core difference between the two technologies. Then we'll do a head-to-head matchup, explore the direct-to-wall advantage, talk about where vinyl still makes sense, and finally, wrap up with a framework on how to choose. All right, part one, the core difference. To really grasp which option is best for you, we have to understand the underlying mechanics of how these things actually work. Fundamentally, a vinyl wall wrap is basically just a giant adhesive sticker. The design gets printed onto a PVC plastic film, and then a crew applies that film right over your wall. I really want you to hold on to that thought because the fact that it's a physical plastic layer literally just sitting on top of a surface, well, that completely dictates how it's going to behave over time, especially in a busy, high-traffic commercial environment. So contrast that with direct-to-wall printing. It's a night and day difference. While vinyl just sits on top of the drywall, direct-to-wall printing skips the plastic film entirely. The printer lays the ink straight onto the wall, bonding it right into the surface itself. It's like the image literally becomes part of the architecture rather than just a sticky layer resting on top. And honestly, this one single distinction drives almost every practical outcome we're about to discuss. Which brings us to part two, our head-to-head matchup. Let's look at the hard facts.
When you put them side by side, the differences are pretty striking. Take seams, for instance. On large walls, vinyl is inevitably going to show visible seams where the panels meet, whereas direct-to-wall is completely 100% seamless. And because vinyl is just a sticker, those edges can catch, lift, bubble, and peel, especially if your space gets humid or gets a lot of foot traffic. Direct-to-wall ink, it doesn't peel. It's permanent and highly cleanable. Then there's the update process. Tearing down old vinyl means dealing with nasty sticky residue and usually some drywall repair. With a printed wall, you literally just paint over it. Plus, direct-to-wall gives you a massive sustainability win by swapping out landfill-bound PVC plastic for low VOC, PVC-free inks.
Now, what's genuinely wild about this tech is the sheer quality we can pull off today. Modern direct-to-wall printers easily hit 600+ dots per inch. We are not talking about some blurry, faded image that looks like it was painted in the 90s. We're talking about razor-sharp, high-definition art and branding bonded straight into your drywall. And the efficiency? Just as impressive. 5. That is the number of hours, well, actually under 5 hours, that it typically takes to install a direct-to-wall print per wall. Compare that to the literal days it can take a full crew to carefully align, apply, and painstakingly smooth out a massive vinyl wrap. It's a total game changer for project timelines. Let's move into part 3, the direct-to-wall advantage. Where exactly does this tech completely dominate? Honestly, direct-to-wall is the undisputed champion for high-traffic areas. Think busy lobbies, school corridors, or gyms. Why? Because there's no physical edge for someone to catch a backpack or a shoulder on, which means zero scuffing or peeling. It's also an absolute dream for large flat walls, giving you permanent, pristine branding that stays looking sharp for years. If your company has strict sustainability goals, this is a massive win since it produces zero landfill waste. And surprisingly, it's actually perfect for spaces that need to update their look fairly often. And that leads right into the long-term costs. Up front, the pricing between a high-end wrap and a direct-to-wall print is actually pretty comparable. But rebranding, that is where direct-to-wall completely shines. You don't have to hire a crew to spend miserable, expensive hours scraping sticky adhesive off the wall and patching torn drywall. You literally just hire a painter to roll a fresh coat of white paint over it, and you're immediately ready to print again. It is incredibly simple, clean, and highly cost-effective over the lifespan of a building. But hey, let's keep it objective here in part 4, where vinyl still works. As industry experts, we know that no single tool is perfect for every single job, right? Vinyl is absolutely not obsolete.
There are highly specific applications where vinyl is still, without a doubt, the right choice. For example, if you're doing very short-term graphics, like a weekend pop-up shop, an event, or a seasonal holiday window that's coming down in a month, vinyl is super easy. Also, if you're dealing with heavily curved or really irregular, funky surfaces, a flexible plastic film can wrap around those tricky shapes way better than a rigid wall printer can navigate them. And lastly, for non-wall surfaces like glass windows, floors, or heavy machinery, adhesive film is strictly required. But listen, for most permanent interior walls, the conformability of vinyl just doesn't outweigh the visible seams, the plastic waste, and the inevitable peeling.
So let's bring this all together in Section 5, How to Choose. We want to hand you our expert diagnostic tool so you can confidently evaluate your own space right now. Here is the very first question you need to ask yourself. How long is this graphic actually going to stay up? If the answer is a long time, then permanent interior installations heavily favor the durability of direct-to-wall ink. You won't be constantly worrying about repairing lifted edges or weird bubbles forming over the years. The second question to ask, is your surface flat or is it heavily curved? Remember our mechanics from earlier. Large, flat walls are the absolute perfect canvas for seam-free, ultra-high-resolution, direct-to-wall printing. Tricky, tight curves? That might mean you need to lean on a flexible vinyl film. Let the actual architecture of your space guide your technology choice.
Question number 3. Do sustainability and pristine appearance matter to you over the long run? If you want to completely avoid peeling edges, visible seams, chopping up your beautiful logo, and the guilt of sending giant sheets of PVC plastic to the landfill every single time you rebrand, well, the data points directly to wall printing.
Which leads us to our final thought for today. When you're staring down your branding budget, I want you to ask yourself this one thing. Are you paying for a permanent, integrated piece of your wall's architecture, or are you really just renting a giant plastic sticker? By understanding the mechanics, the real-world durability, and the long-term maintenance required for both of these options, you are now completely empowered to make the smart, expert investment for your space. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and keep learning.